Good morning, good evening. Welcome everyone to the Saturday Sangha. I'm John. I'm speaking to you from Damascus, Oregon.
And I'm Denise.
Good evening, everyone. In this part of the world, I'm George, and I'm speaking to you from Kathmandu in Nepal.
And welcome from Claudia in Damascus.
And hello, this is Shauna. So nice to have all of you. Please tell us where you're joining from. Hi, Paul in Texas. And we have Nick in Baltimore. Hello. And hi, Martin in Florida. Good to have you. And Anil, hello in Pune. Namaskar Vijay in San Francisco. And hey, Lawrence in Creston. And my good friend John Vossler, who we're going to Costa Rica with next April. If you want to join us, check out my website. It will be a wonderful experience. Nice to have you, John. And we have Fernando, hello in Kashmir. And hi, Annie and Al, hello. And we have Leanne in Byron Bay, good morning. And Raj and Raju, namaskar, Jai Gurudev. And namaskar, Tej and Raj, hello. Hi, Chella in Troy. And we have Amit, hello in Texas. And Rosanna in Italy. And now I'll go over the names, as we're getting so many. Hi, Troy. Hello, Suresh. Hi, Patricia. And hi, Roxana. And we have Linda. Hello. And Daniel. And Luz. And Bruce. Hello. And we also have Sybil. Hello. And Bill. Hope you're feeling better. And hi, Sudhir and Rick. And many, many more names. Nice to have you add an end. And Claudia and I will be sharing the Agora mantra with you. Please chant along.
Agorebhyo tagorebhyo Gora gora taribhyascha Sarvata sharva sarvebhyo Namaste rudrarupebhya Agorebhyo tagorebhyo Gora gora taribhyascha Sarvata sharva sarvebhyo Namaste rudrarupebhya Agorebhyo tagorebhyo Gora gora taribhyascha Sarvata sharva sarvebhyo Namaste rudrarupebhya. O Lord Shiva, you alone transform yourself into all forms, into the forms of the powers of Rudra as Agora, the enlightening and uplifting energy, Goratari, the frightful, darkening energy which pushes one down, and Gora, the energy which keeps one fixed, neither rising or falling. These forms embodied in Rudra Shiva are helpful to aspirants while they are aware, and frightful for the ones who are ignorant, pushing them down and down.
That was a quick run. Thank you, Claudia. Let's practice our meditation for the next 10 minutes. You can practice whatever your own practice is if you'd like. If not, join me for the practice that we share. So starting off just seated comfortably, but sitting up tall. Lengthening the spine. Just starting this practice as we always do, with a freshness, with a newness, with a beginner's mind. Gaze softening, bringing attention to a space below you. Starting to notice that you're breathing, observing the natural free-flowing movement of the breath in and out, noticing the inhale, noticing the exhale. And then starting to notice the 4 parts of the breath. The inhale, the slight pause, and the exhale and the slight pause. Just feel into this rhythm. And as you inhale, bring awareness to the space between the two eyebrows. And as you exhale, gently rest in the pause at the end of the exhale. And you continue this way, inhaling awareness at the space between the two eyebrows. Exhale, resting in the pause. And carrying this turning point throughout the practice. And each time the mind goes to thoughts, which for most of us it will, gently bring your awareness back to the breath. Continue with this practice. slowly beginning to surface from your practice. And just sit here for a little while. George.
Okay. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the Shiva Sutras now. And last week we finished off with the first part of Sutra 43. There's only 45 sutras in the whole text. And it's very interesting because Swamiji started to explain how Kemraja has added this real subtle understanding of the breath. And we finished off how this yogi in the state of universal God consciousness experiences the subtler state of breath. It's called pranana shakti. Instead of prana, pranana, which means the underlying breath, which is the source of life and the source of all the other breaths. And the next part of this same verse continues with that, and it talks about how this pranana, once we breathe in, because we said it comes from the external point, we breathe that in, all living beings, it gets broken up and creates a myriad of functions in the body. And one of those functions is it breaks time up into 3 different spaces. So before we start this, we're going to show a chart to explain the terms that Swamiji is going to talk about. And we're all familiar now with the Goratari energies, but this is how they function in time. So the terms that are going to come up here is Triv Aham on the left here, Triv Aham, Triv Idam, and Trishtam. And each one of these is more gross as you go down. And Triv Aham Swamiji relates to what's called Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. These are the 3 main nadis in everybody. And Ida is the one on the left, Pingala is on the right, and Sushumna is the center. It's the what's called Madhya Nadi, or the central vein, or Sushumna. And Trividam is represented by the 3 breaths, Apana, Samana, and Prana. And respectively, they flow in these different nadis. And Tristam, when we breathe in and out, we're caught in the cycle of time. When we go into the state of pranana, we go beyond time, even though we may still be breathing in and out. And in the beginning of the Shiva Sutras, verse 4 of the first awakening and verse 19 of the third awakening, explained how this Mahagora, there's a verse comes up which Mahagora, which means extremely frightful energies. They sit around the universal mother in Brahmarandra, which is Sahasra Chakra, and through the energies of Kechari, Gochari, Dikchari, and Bhuchari, which are 4 different energies that function under the Gora energies that push us into the world, and they push ignorant people down. So you'll all get this chart with the replays if you want to go into it in great detail. I think we'll go straight now to Swamiji, and we'll listen to what Swamiji says, about this verse, and then we can discuss this in more detail after that.
This is what he says here. Pranana Rupa Grahaka Bhumikam Chitta, and she holds the state of Grahaka, limited being. Grahi Rupa Jagat Abhasatmanas Prati. Then she enters in the objective field also. So this is the glory of his Swatantriya or her Swatantriya. Prathamam Udbhasito Asya Prana Sambandha. That this attachment with breath. has appeared at first. Tatha cha Sri Vajasneyayam, in Vajasneya Samhita also it is said, Yasa Shakti Para Sukshma Vyapini Nirmala Shiva Shakti Chakrasi Janani Parananda Amritatmaka. That energy, that supreme energy and subtle energy, which is all pervading, which is without any impurities, which is always blissful, which creates the whole class of energies of Lord Shiva, and which is Parananda Amritatmika, filled with supreme bliss. Mahagoreshwari Chanda Sricha Samhara Karika Trivaham Trividam Tristham Balat Kalam Prakarshati. This supreme Goreshwari, which is Chanda. Chanda means? Chanda means which is fearful. Fearful for ignorant persons. Sricha Samhara, and that is, this energy is creative and destructive also. Creative for those who are blissful, destructive for those who are ignorant. Trivaham, Trividam, Tristham, Balat, Kalam, Prakarshati. And she attracts or destroys the time, the sphere of time, which is Trivaham, which flows in three ways. Ida, Pingala and Sushumna. And Trividam, which is Trividham, which is existing in Prana, Apana and Samana. And Tristham, which is existing in present, past and future. And that time is destroyed by this energy. Iti samvidya bhagavata prana kramena nadi trayi vahi som surya vahnyatma avasthit atit anagat vartamana roop bahikal ullasana vilapana karyatva muktam. This energy of Lord Shiva, which is no other than his consciousness, that creates and destroys this sphere of time by entering on the path of breath. And Soma, Surya and Vahani. First Nadi Traya, Ida, Pingala and Sushumna. This is Trivaham. He carries these three veins, Ida, Pingala and Sushumna. Trividam, she is filled in three states, Som, Surya and Vahani. Somanadi, Suryanadi and Vahinadi. And she carries three times, Tristham, past, present and future. Not carries only, she destroys that time also. Destroys and creates. Creates for those who are ignorant, destroys for those who are elevated.
The energy of Lord Shiva, our Svatantra Shakti, our energy of freedom. That's most subtle and most predominant energy in our being. Svatantra Shakti, absolute independence. See, the energy of independence, our energy of freedom. But through that energy, everything's created. Or we create everything, that is.
There's, Al asked a question, what was Vani? Vani means fire, Soma, Surya and Vani. Vani means just the fire. Soma is moon, Surya is the sun. And the sun gets its energy from fire because the sun is a ball of fire, but it draws its energy from the fire element. But I think we can move straight on to the very next part, because it continues to elaborate on this whole idea of pranana Shakti, and I'm sure there'll be questions that come up after that, and this will probably answer some of the questions or one question that just came up already.
Okay, sounds good, and then we can go from there.
Yep.
Taduktam Sachandepi, in Sachanda also it is said, Prana, Pranamaya, Prano, Visarga, Puranam Prati, Nityam Apurayatyesha, Pranyanam Urasichata. Prana, Pranamaya. Actually, this Prana is Pranamaya. It is only filled with life. That is first Prana. pranan. Prano visarga puranam prati. And this prana, the second prana, that is in and out, in and out. This first prana is life. First prana is life. Which first prana? First state of prana. Yena dehaja tabdata na bhavati. By this is the movement of that breath. First breath, pranan. There is that life. This is first prana. In that first prana, he has come in manifestation. He has been manifested in first prana first, pranan. And then second prana. Second prana is breathing in and out. For that he says prana, pranamaya. This first prana is actually life. Prana and this breathing, next prana, is visarga puranam prati nityam apuretesha. This creates and destroys every now and then. In and out, in and out. This is inside, there is a destruction. Outside, it is creation. Pranyanam urasishata. In reality, this breath is residing in the heart of beings. In the heart of beings. Pranasya hakarastu sumrata prana supravratto halakriti. This breath, second breath, is said to be hakara. Is represented by hakara, this ha varna, ha letter. Supravrata, halakriti. It is just like hal. Hal means by which we dig the ground. Plowing instrument. This is the formation of her in Sharda script. In Sharda script you write her like this. Just like plow. Yetukta nitya Shri Swachanda Bhattarak Roop Pranamayatvat Visarga Purataya Srishti Samhar Karyatvam Abhihitam. So this conducting of creation and destruction is attributed to this breath. So it is well said in this previous sutra that Naisargika Prana Sambandha, this connection of being attached to breath is Naisarga. It is nature. It is natural way of Lord Shiva. Ateva Shri Bhatt Kaltena Prana ki nimitta dharyam yeti tattvartha chintamana uktam. But Kalata has also explained in his book Tattvartha Chintamani, in this sutra, Praksamit Prane Parinata. First change of God consciousness is that entering in that prana. This, Dehasitabdata, and this prana. This is first step towards a manifestation.
Is that the prana that's between two breaths?
No, that is not prana. That will carry you to that breath. Kundalini is that.
Special breath.
Yes, special breath.
So we're speaking about that life force again. How he said it's life. That first manifestation of breath is pranana. That life force, it's that thing in the person when that life force leaves that person, he's dead. The life goes out of that person. He becomes, somebody said, becomes stiff like that. It's the life that's there, And in yogis, this yogis when they have yogis in their experience of kundalini, or when they say the breath is sipped down, then the breath stops. And you wonder how this person lives if his breath stops. If he's not breathing, how's he going to live? What's happening for that person? But actually, the pranana, that life force is what keeps him alive. It's a subtle life-giving reality of everything in life, and that yogi, he's bathed in that pranana shakti, that life force, and that's how he lives, even though his breath is stopped.
Shana, questions?
Never sure if you're going to say something, so I'm sitting back. Okay, so let's see. So should we just reiterate what was mentioned by Swamiji through Vijay's question? Because I think it could just bring it a little clearer. Is that possible? Because Vijay asked, because this has to do with our meditation practice, if we could just a little bit more, where he says, can you describe if and how this explanation of time, breath, and nadis is related to the meditation practice that we do in the beginning? And maybe we could just say how.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot packed into what Swamiji said, and he said that this pranan, like John just said, is the life force. But when we breathe in through the prana, it gets broken up into these three aspects. So as soon as we breathe in, we're breathing in and we're breathing out. We're breathing in, it's creation coming from the outside. And when we breathe in the body, and you'll have to ask a doctor, Al can probably explain it better than anybody. When you breathe in oxygen. This is on the physical gross level. When you breathe out, you're breathing out carbon dioxide. And what you've done, you've burned up whatever dross is there in the body, and there has to be the byproduct of that. So this is going on in all the time, this breathing in and breathing out. The moon breathing in, the sun or fire breathing out, and the sun. This combination is what's called Srishti and Samhara, creation and destruction. The turning point in between is connected, as John asked, is this pranana? And Swamiji, this is that, but this is also where Kundalini resides. And that's why when you go into that state, John just said it, the yogi stops breathing externally, but they're still alive because they're living in the center of that life force. And that's why we always emphasize, there are many practices in the world that are focused on the breathing, but Kashmir Shaivism specifically emphasizes these turning points.
Mm.
The doorway.
Yeah, doorways. So many doorways.
So then Barbara wants to know, so the three energies are all the same, but for the ignorant, they destroy. Yet in the text, it also says create. And for the elevated person, they create, while the third one is for liberation? Question mark.
That liberation comes from merging with that state of pranana Shakti, the energy which is connected to the Shakti chakra, which is the wheel of all the energies in the universe. At first, we experience it just as a turning point in the breath. There's a pause. That's in Anavapaya. As we progress more and more and our practice becomes more and more subtle, we begin to experience it as something, a pervading breath, till it gets to that point where you become that breath. You realize actually at a certain point, I thought I was breathing, but actually I'm being breathed.
Mm.
I'm being breathed, and I've been being breathed ever since I was born. And this is what the yogi feels. And the yogi sees everybody else as being breathed too, no matter what level of consciousness they're in. Yeah, I'm sure there are more questions. Claudia, there's a chart. I just wanted Claudia to bring up a chart to show, because the illustration that we had last week best describes what Swamiji just talked about. This is what we had last week, and this is that chart of Shiva and Shakti, of course, drawing there, very, very rough drawing. Sorry, my graphics are not that good. But all of this comes out from the state of Paramashiva, which is a universal state of just pure energy, pure light, and pure awareness. But from the state of Shiva and Shakti, the first flow out, as you can see there, is pranana breath. And that pranana breath is flowing out throughout the whole universe. And that external turning point, which he mentioned the word briefly, visarga, is the external turning point where we draw all of our breath from. And that external turning point is connected to everybody, everywhere. And how do we know that? For our own experience, have you ever noticed when you're in a group of people and somebody yawns, and all of a sudden, even though you're not tired, a few people yawn? because Abhinavagupta points out that at the end of a yawn, you touch that point of this visarga where breath comes in, and because it's connected to everybody, everybody feels it. So this Purusha and Prakriti down below are breathing in, they're breathing in this pranana, okay? And that forms the form of our life force. Now there's another slide which will explain what he talked about, how this gets broken up. Claudia, if you just slide to the next slide. Okay, so this is a side view to give us an idea. See where it says pranana breath on the right? That's the point outside the external turning point, which is this pranana breath, which is everywhere. Because no matter where you go, you're breathing. You know, when you go to anywhere in the world, you're breathing, and you're drawing your breath from that external point. Just above that, you'll see it becomes prana as it enters the body. And when it enters the body, I've got here on the right, it breaks up into the 5 pranas. He said he only used the term before prana, apana, and samana in that verse. And the udana and brahma, there are 5 breaths. So this is what happens to everybody. Outside, it's the universal breath it's the breath of God. As we breathe it in, we take it in as to our individual breath. And as it enters the body through this pathway of the breath, this is not the pathway of physical breath, which comes through the nose and goes to the lungs. This is the subtle pathway of breath, which goes, you know, in this subtle nadis. It's this Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. But for the sake of this and keeping it simple, we just have the pathway of the breath that's talked about in Kashmir Shaivism. You'll all get this chart to have a look at it. Okay. So this is what he talked about in that whole verse. So we can stop sharing the screen, Claudia. And
Question, George, just to clarify from seeing some of the things coming up. So the external breath, or the breath that's out, the pranan breath, mom and dad, you as well, is the universal breath.
yes.
Right. And then when it comes into us as an individual and it's broken down into those 5 different breaths, that becomes the individual breath.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's where those 5 parts are, right? The prana,
Yes.
the udana. Okay.
Yes. Because he mentioned 3 of those breaths in the verse, prana,
Right.
apana, and samana. And earlier in the text, he's already talked about those. Yeah.
So then a question, because Marlena's asking this, and it's a question I've had too, and maybe some other people have, is so how is this pranan breath tied to the actual inhale and exhale, the gross breath, right? We've tried to find those words. We got the subtle breath, which is the one you're talking about in the 5 parts. What about our gross breath, right? The inhale and exhale, what is that?
Yeah. The inhale and exhale, we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide.
Right. But is that prana, pranan? What is it?
Life force is in it, because if we stop breathing the gross breath, we don't exist. If we stop breathing the gross breath, but there's gross breath and there's a subtle breath. There's the subtle prana, which is traveling with the gross breath at all times. And it's the source of the gross breath, because that external turning point in everybody is the source of you know, it's the source of the prana shakti, or this prana which comes after we start to breathe in. And they're intimately connected. That's why practices like pranayama, which is one of the things mentioned in the verse, and all of these things, they're all practices, and meditation is a practice to make us become aware not of the gross breath so much, but of the subtle breath, which is traveling side by side.
So then that's a perfect segue, where there's this question coming out from a few people, Suresh and Amit and stuff of that sort, where, you know, many people learn that the Kundalini rising happens from the Muladhara up, right? And then also people are asking, is that the case? And also, how do we make that? How do you make that happen?
John just explained that. John, tell him about the sipping down of the breath again.
You know, that a yogi and our experience of yoga and his mission part of his yogic experience, he's breathing, and his breathing becomes subtler and subtler, and then it whirls around a spot, I guess is what they say, and then it's what they say, it's sip down also, so it feels, I guess it feels that it's just going sip down, and so that once it's sipped down, then that breathing, that external breathing stops. From the point of view of that body of that person, he's no longer breathing anymore, but he's alive, inside. Inside, he's very much alive. And so part of that breathing down and then that sipping down is that sipping down is the energy of that breath then goes inside, and then it travels to that Muladhara chakra, inside in that Sushumna Nadi, that central vein. It travels to that Muladhara chakra, and then contacts that, and then Kundalini arises from there.
And there's no way of making it happen. It's by grace, right?
Yes.
You practice, that's the desire by grace. And then when it happens, it's meant to happen, but there's no way of working towards making it happen. You just practice without expectations.
That's why Swamiji says
One-pointedness,
that poem of Swamiji's is so important for this thing, to understand that. He talks about that experiencing of sipping down himself and what happens to that yogi, and in terms of his own experience, because he feels that he's dying to his body. So I mean, because death is something that everybody has it built into them, into their nature to avoid dying. Dying is something it's just part of your whole being, and so that yogi he begins to experience the fact that he feels that he's dying. He experiences the fear and all the things that go with that, and so that yogi has to maintain his own power of will to go past that, because he's not actually dying. He's dying to his own individuality, but he feels like he's dying, and so he has to go through that, and that's that transition point from the external world of the body into the internal world of spiritual Muladhara chakra and Kundalini. So Swamiji says it very nicely in that poem. I don't know, we went through this poem before.
Yeah, just a little while ago. I think just a couple weeks ago or something of that sort.
and also there's a beautiful clip which Claudia can put in the chat of an interview with Mother Alice, God bless her. She made these wonderful questions where Swamiji, in a little 4-minute clip, explains Kundalini in terms of Kashmir Shaivism. And she asks, how do you make it happen? And he says, through one-pointed awareness. One-pointed awareness, like John just said, when you have that complete one-pointed awareness and the breath gets very subtle, the breath only gets subtle by one-pointed awareness, because the mind, awareness, and the breath are all intimately connected. And that's when the breath stops. You feel that twirling sensation that John said. You feel it sip down to Muladhara chakra at the base of the spine. And at that point, if the grace is there, it rises as Kundalini. And they're all stages, and that's the classic example. And John asked the question, so Swamiji, how does this happen, like just straight away like that? How long does it take for this to happen? And Swamiji said, maybe 1 month, maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, maybe 10 years, maybe 10 lifetimes. He said like that. It depends on grace, but it depends on the one-pointed practice.
And isn't an important part of it that we don't only just have a seated practice twice a day, but it's about bringing practice into your whole life all day, every day, right? Through breath awareness, through attention here, or whatever it is through the day. So then it becomes where it's longer periods of practice. It's just not your 20-minute in the morning, 20-minute in the evening, or hour in the morning, hour in the evening.
And Swamiji says your life should be filled predominantly with practice, more than 50%. He said, he said your life should be more than half filled with practice in terms of your daily life.
So we have a lot of questions. May I just go over a couple of them and then we listen to Swamiji, or what would you like to do, George? I saw you pointing.
The next verse, which is verse 44, is going to answer a lot of the questions that were just asked.
Let's do it then.
Let's do that and then see if it covers some of those. This is where he goes into the subtlety of the breaking up of the breath that we just talked about.
अतश्च स्थितेऽपि नैसर्गिके प्राणसम्बन्धे यस् तदारूढ आन्तरीं कलां विमर्शन् आस्ते स लोकोत्तर एव. So, स्थितेऽपि नैसर्गिके प्राणसम्बन्धे, although he is breathing in and out, just like us, but actually, yes, tadaruda antarim kalam vimrashan, the one, that yogi who is always aware of that supreme state of internal being of consciousness, in breathing also. So, lokottara, he is beyond the state of ordinary people. He is alaukika. नासिकांतर मध्य संयमात किमत्र सव्य अपसव्य सौषुम्नेषु. The one who is centered, whose consciousness is centralized in nasika, in central vein, all in that pranan, the state of pranan, whose consciousness is centralized. Centralized is correct? Centralized in that breath. In that central vein. प्राणन
शक्ति के अंदर में जो मध्यधाम है.
Yes. This is not kundalini. This is the force of kundalini. The one who is attached to that force. Kimatra savya apasavya saushamneshu. What to him if he travels in prana, if he travels in apana, if he travels in sushumna? What to him? He is always the same. Kimatra savya apasavya saushamneshu. For him, there is no difference. He may travel in ordinary breathing, he may travel in that pranan shakti, or he may travel in madhyanadi, central vein. This is one and the same thing for him. Sarvanadi chakra pradhana rupeshu savi apsavi saushamneshu. The right vein, the left vein, and the central vein, which is predominant in all veins, in all 72,000 veins. Predominant veins are only three: Pingala, Ida, and Sushumna. That is Dakshanadi, Vamanadi, and Madhyanadi. Nasika. Nasika means nasate kautilena vahati iti kritva kutilvahini prana shakti. That energy of breath. That energy of breath that gives life and that removes the stiffness from in your body. This gets stiff just when you leave this physical frame. This will get stiff. You can't fold it. You can't fold this. You can't fold any part, any limb of your body at that moment. Because that prana shakti is gone. Tasya antar, and whose consciousness is centralized in the center of that antari samyat, that internal consciousness. Tasya abhimadhyam, and in the center of that too, sarvantara tamataya pradhanam, that which is predominant in each and every being of everything.
That he is aware of his prana in whole of his body.
It's madhyama prana in whole of his body. Tasya devati devasya parabodha surupina vimarsha parama shakti sarvagya jnanishalini. For that who is Lord of Lords, who is one with supreme cognition, parabodha surupina, his supreme energy is only awareness, energy of awareness, which is all knowing and all acting, and all glorious. It is Sri Kali Kramokta Nitya, it is said in Kalika Krame. Yat vimarshamayam rupam tat samyamat antar nivalana prakarsha. Yat vimarshamayam rupam, the formation of that awareness, tat samyamat, when you put your consciousness to that awareness. What is putting that? What is meant by putting your consciousness in that awareness? That is antar nivalana prakarsha. But be aware in continuity of your being. Kimatra uchyate. Then what to say for him? I am he sarvadashasu dedipi mano nirvithana parasamadhi. This person is centralized and glorified with that supreme samadhi which is why there is no vithana for him. Taduktam Sri Vijnana Bhairave. This is said in Vijnana Bhairava also. Grahi grahaka samvitti samanya sarvadehinam yoginam tu visheshoyam sambandhe savadhanata. This knowledge of subjective knowledge and objective knowledge is same in every being, in each and every being, living being. But to yogis only there is one difference, that in the connection of these objective knowledge and subjective knowledge, in connection with these two, they are aware. This is the difference between yogi and ordinary person.
It's awareness, we keep hearing about that awareness. It's a simple thing in one sense, isn't it? Being aware, having your awareness on one point. It's simple and yet not so simple. Easy, but not so easy. And what do we hear here? That continuity of that awareness, not to have broken awareness, to have it the same way, same drumbeat, same unbroken cycle of awareness. If you're not taking the wave to some other thought or whatever it is, you just have that awareness, and that's all you have. Again and again, you don't lose that awareness.
There's a lot of questions, and a lot of them were actually covered in that little section. Shana, any particular juicy questions?
Don't put me on. Okay.
I'm sorry, I just...
Wait, so there's a few, there's so many. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's just throw in some of them. So Barbara says, where individual consciousness is in all of this. Where is individual consciousness in all of this?
John, I'll jump in. Individual consciousness is that state of consciousness where universal consciousness has been contracted down into becoming an individual. But it's not separate from universal consciousness. Universal consciousness is always there in the background.
Yes. In fact, if you heard that lecture, the beginning lecture on the 36 Tattvas, remember that part where we have the idea of Lord Shiva's being, and when he manifests himself in the world, he contracts his awareness, and he does that through these kanchukas, and then through that kanchukas, out of the kanchukas come Purusha, the limited being. That's the beginning of the limited being. From that, those kanchukas take that universal state, and it's contracted, and becomes an individual being as Purusha, and then that Purusha then is further contracted by the world of Prakriti, which is the machine of the world that we live in, and that machine of the world of living then contracts that even more, and then we have individual ego, which is ahamkar, that ego.
So I think that's a perfect segue before we go over a couple of questions, just to mention that, and what do you think, George, Mom and Dad, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'll start our new session with the Kashmir Shaivism, the Secret Supreme, right?
Yes.
And one of the chapters is on the tattvas towards the beginning. And so it's a perfect opportunity just for all of you to even, if you have extra time, I know everyone's so busy, to maybe start just, perusing through this. And if you don't have this book, then buy it on our website. And is one of the first books that Lakshmanjoo Academy or Universal Shiva Fellowship published on the teachings that Swami Lakshmanjoo shared with Mom and Dad when they first went to study with him, which I'm sure they'll tell us about in the beginning of our session. In, what do you think, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, George? You're good with timing.
Well, I think that we'll probably, because we've only got one more left, and then we've got Kemraj's final slokas. I think we'll finish next week.
Okay.
We'll finish Shiva Sutras, yeah.
So it's a perfect opportunity for people to kind of prepare, because this book, you've been working on this, George, right? For the last, what does it say, months, and going over each chapter, haven't you?
Yes, just for the last 100 years, I think. Yeah. And now we have it in a form where we can show it. But also, my memory's faded, but I believe that we did a 4-part webinar on the tattvas.
We did. And
Okay,
it's
good.
worth checking out. Yes.
So, and that was specifically, and that is the first chapter. And when John and Denise went to Kashmir in 1972, we'll cover this next week, Swamiji gave him this 36 tattvas first. And the reason was, Swamiji later said, he said, if you want to build a house, you need to put the foundation down. If you want to understand Kashmir Shaivism, the very foundation of Kashmir Shaivism is understanding the 36 tattvas. Like John just gave a very brief segue into that. And that's how you understand where we're sitting right now. We're sitting down here in the limited world of perception, because we're down here and we live in the world of just the five gross elements, right? So there's another 30 tattvas above that. There's 31 actually, up to Maya. And it's beautiful to go through these, and it's, what did you call it, John, once? The mystical geography of awareness.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So before we leave and everyone says goodbye until next week for our last session or whatever that is, I just wanted to mention that every 2 weeks, Claudia shares at 10 o'clock a wonderful intuitive art class that's free and it's online. And she's going to put the post up there in the chat. Join her if you haven't yet. And if you have, continue to join. And I just wanted to mention that because a lot of people are really enjoying it.
And somebody just asked, Joe just put in, what is the text of Secret Supreme? Is it Kamraj's Prachabhigya Hridayam? No. John, tell him when you went to sit there, what Swamiji did without books or anything.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I asked him if he would teach me Kashmir Shaivism. I mean, when I first arrived, I had gone to Kashmir from my university, in McMaster University in Canada, and I asked him when arriving if he would teach me Kashmir Shaivism. He said yes, he'd be glad to do that. And so he set a time for us, and Denise and I were to come, and we came. And then he started this with these different chapters, and these chapters were given out of his own, what's the Sanskrit word for that? They come of his own Prativa Shakti. Is that it? Does that come of his own state of awareness? He didn't have a book that he followed. He wasn't commenting on any other book or whatever. He gave these just from his own understanding and experience and whatever. And so he began teaching, and he gave us the various chapters. I mean, the various parts which make up the Secret Supreme of all the various chapters. And now George has gone through those and cleaned that up a bit more so that we can listen and I think watch it on the screen while we listen to Swamiji give his lectures, and that'll be just great.
And it's the essence of Tantra Loka. It's the essence of the whole book that Abhinavagupta wrote of Tantra Loka. It's a condensed version of that. But again, as John said, no notes, nothing. As Swamiji laughs sometimes, he said, I didn't have any little points written on my fingernails or anything. He spoke it because he lived it. And it's very obvious. And John and Denise ask a barrage of questions, which are valuable for all of us. And he never faltered. He just went straight through. And he kept pulling back onto the text. Each chapter unfolds, and it really is. It's a condensed version. It's like Tantra Sara of Abhinavagupta's Tantra Loka. So it's the complete version of Kashmir Shaivism, really.
I think we'll all enjoy this. It'll be a wonderful experience. You can never get enough of this.
And at the end of it, when Swamiji saw how keen, John only went there to do his PhD in Shaivism, and Swamiji asked John, I'm sure he remembers, he'll tell us next week, he said, I fear that when I leave this world, my teaching and this tradition will just disappear. If you have the time, would you be able to stay and I'll give you more lectures And that went on for the next 20 years. And that's why we have this incredible treasure today that John, being an electronics whiz, bought the tape recorders and everything, and he recorded every single lecture. It really is and Swamiji felt this was the treasure that he left in this world before he left this world, and he said this is where people in the future they'll be initiated into Kashmir Shaivism by the teaching. Yeah. So we'll cover that. John and Denise can give a more elaborate introduction next week because they were actually there. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. Well, God bless you one and all. Thank you again for coming. It's wonderful, wonderful. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Ore